Hey everybody there on YouTube, it is Rajiv Satyal. You always get me first, YouTube. So I'm gonna go live on Instagram and Facebook. I'm already a minute late here, and I'm gonna be a few minutes late on Facebook and Instagram, but you get to see me behind the scenes. That's the fun of seeing me on YouTube. So I'm gonna mute us here, and you're gonna see all the setup I have to do. We're already 17, 18 seconds in, so enjoy the show, everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, leave your comments. I'll try to get back to you as I can. And tune in to see me on Facebook if you can, because that's where I do a lot of my responses to comments, and I still have to set it up so that I can go live from one place at once. I haven't done that yet, and I need to do it. So I'll be doing that sometime soon. I'll be going with the program, because some of you have told me what it's called, and I think that would be a really nice thing to be able to respond to everybody at once instead of having to always kind of look away, and it's not easy. Even now, I'm not looking at you. I don't know if I lose you when I'm doing that, but you know what? Maybe we lean into that a little bit and we say, you get to see me, like I said, behind the scenes. So good morning in India. I know it is very early there. It is 7:30 in the morning. For me, that's early. I'm a comedian, so 7:30 in the morning is very early. But for you, maybe it's not. So let me know how you guys are doing. How is everything there? We went live just a little while ago in the middle of the night in India, and that was a lot of fun. So we had about 200 people sign in, which is really great. So let's go ahead and pull all of this up, which should be a lot of fun. And let's go ahead and go through the rest of our checklist, see how that goes. So good to see what I do here. I close these doors and we make sure that we get our microphone set up. Okay, so you get a sense of what that's like. And there's so much that goes into it. So any of your favorite people who put out videos, when they do a live one, you get to see kind of what all they have to do. It's not the easiest thing in the world sometimes to go live, because there are so many moving parts that you just don't even think of. And you think, oh, I forgot to do that. I forgot to turn off the notifications, and then that messes up your screen. And so many other things happen that you just don't really think about sometimes. So speaking of that, I'm trying to get my latest microphone thing going here, but that doesn't seem to want to cooperate either. And that usually happens, only when you're on camera, right? It's kind of like when your kids act up when you're out of the house. They're all nice in the house, and then you get to a party and it's like, you can't control your kids. Well, you can, but sometimes it's just not the easiest thing in the world. So thanks for signing in. Appreciate that. Let's just go ahead and test out this microphone, see if that works. So let's see if we test it out here. How does that sound? And we'll turn up the volume so we can actually hear it. Works. So let's see. It worked. So that's always good. That is always a nice thing when the microphone works, because I tell you what, sometimes it doesn't, and that gets annoying very fast. So we're going to hit record on that to make sure we're on the Samsung thing ready to go. Not Samsung, but Samsung. Isn't that weird? You would think from a branding perspective they would have gone with something else, but they went with Samsung, unless they were first. Although I don't think they were first. I think Samsung was before them, but who knows? Maybe they weren't. So let's go ahead and get this set up here, and we'll get the microphone going here, and we'll go Facebook Live, 11th of June, 2020, and let's talk about racism and other stuff, right? So now that we've got all of that, the title, see, then we got to do the same thing on Facebook or on Instagram. I tell you, there's so much to keep in mind here. It's just always a lot. So let's see how that goes. Let's title this thing and say it is the 11th of June, 2020 IG Live, IGL. We add that title, and then we go ahead and we test everything else. We got the script ready. We got our music ready to go if we need that. Do we need music? Sometimes you feel like you do, right? And other times not. And then we have our water set up here, which is good. I have my chai. Let's take a sip of the chai. Because sometimes I talk so much, I don't get a chance to even sip that. And then we got to put the agenda up. We didn't do that. So can we put the agenda up? Would be nice. So let's see if we can read it here. Let's see. how this is going to be, because we have to tilt this back so you can actually see me. And then we have to go ahead and close this, because otherwise what ends up happening is, even though I get a little bit darker, that's what we're going to talk about, right? Darkness, whether that's good or acceptable. And we want to write the agenda there. So this is what you do. You get to see me write the agenda on the board, YouTube. So we can go all the way over here. And of course, there's always more in the shot that you can ever imagine. It's always more than you think. So let's go with the 11th. See, again, things acting up when they work all day long, and then the minute you need them, they don't work. So you go the 11th of June, 2020, Satyal comes alive. There is our agenda. We're going to talk about Black Lives Matter, and we're going to talk about COVID. What else is there? What else is there in life? Now, did we block it? We're going to sit in front of it is the issue, because that was the thing. Of course we did, because we didn't think that through. So that's what happens sometimes. You block the agenda, and now you can't see it. Okay? So these are the things you have to think about when you're doing a live. You don't think about those things. So now we're going to erase it. I'm going to start over. And now we're going to be even later than we were before. Those are the things you don't think about. And the weird thing is, this may not even come off. That's the genius of it. This may not even come off. And you can see how cheap I am, because I'm not even using the eraser. I'm using toilet paper. At a time when Americans felt like there was no toilet paper left in the world. And now I'm using toilet paper. So for all the people who don't have any, I'm sorry, I don't mean to make light of the fact that there isn't a toilet paper out there. So now we'll have a messy board, because we didn't think that through. So now let's see if we can go over here and say 11th of June, 2020, Satyal comes alive. Satyal, I should say. And we're going to talk about Black Lives Matter and COVID. What else? Because we're going to save a little bit of time by not using those other words. So there you go. That's a mess now, because we didn't think it through. That's what happens. So let's see if we can go through the rest of our stuff here. And we've got the agenda up. We've got all of our other stuff ready to go. And we've got the lighting, the windows, the laptop for YouTube Live. We're good there. We got the volume down on the Mac. And we've got our notifications off on the iPhone. It's all set up. We've tested the audio. We're going to hit record on the audio, which we did. And we want to make sure here that we've got the microphone on, and we do. We're going to hit the screen recording on that. We'll start that, and then we're going to go over here, and I believe we are recording, which is fantastic. And then we're going to go live. And this is what we're going to do here. I'm going to tilt this guy here. We're live on YouTube. Thank you for signing in. You've got to see a lot of the setup there. And here we are live on Instagram. Thank you to my Instagram followers for signing in. I was just live a couple hours ago. So great to see you guys again. Thanks again for having me, for what it's worth. And now we're going to start the Facebook Live as well. And here we go. So let's just make sure we're good. And we should be ready to go. So let's do this. Let's move this down here, and we should be ready to rock. Okay, so go ahead and let me know if you can hear me okay, YouTube. I think you already did, which is great. On Instagram, can you hear me okay on Instagram? It would be really nice if you can let me know that. I'm going to wave to the folks who are signing in. I will try to continue to do that if I can. Thanks very much for signing in. Appreciate that. I'm going to say hi. And there's Danielle. Hi, Danielle. Hope you were doing great in Austin. How are things down there? Let us know. Where are you signing in from, guys? We got YouTube going, we've got Instagram going, and we've got Facebook going. And maybe by next week, we're going to have TikTok going. Who knows? Let's see. So where are you guys? Where are you based? What's the mood there? What's happening? We're going to go live here for about an hour, a little under an hour is the plan, because, you know, you see how long you can sustain the dialogue. And that's really what this is meant to be. It's really meant to be a dialogue with y'all. Danielle, you're in Austin. You get that, y'all. And I'm going to go through what I have learned, what you have learned, because I posted that on Facebook and on Instagram. And a lot of you were super cool to go ahead and weigh in with what you learned, which is great. That's awesome, because I want to hear about it. Sat Sri Akal, Sarabjit, can always count on you to sign in. We got Karuna there, Karuna, I should say, doing a watch party in San Francisco. Wow, thank you so much for doing a watch party. That is really awesome. I prefer Seiko. That's a watch joke from really the 80s. Vipul Shah, spelled in the Americanized fashion. I like that, Vipul Shah, instead of V-I-P-U-L, S-H-A-H, the Gujarati tip. Toronto, yes, Sarabjit, if you're in Toronto, hope it is, well, probably toasty there is my guess, I would imagine. Sunny, Mabel signing in here. Good to see you guys. Sup from the Natty. That is my good friend Dave Mayo. Mayo is white, but Dave is not. Yo, what is up? How come it took me 25 years to come up with that joke? You probably heard that a lot in high school. I didn't even think of it until now. Greg Murray there in Cincinnati, my friend, my dad's friend, I should say, and my friend, sitting, was it fourth row when I recorded my special in Fairfield, Ohio in 2012. And I picked on him because he said he went back to school for accounting. That's what he got for participating in my show. He was a good sport then. He's still a good sport. And we got Maryland, D.C. in the house. That's where people is. We got Munnan also from D.C., so the D.C. in the house. We've got Sunanda from New York City. Great to see you, as always, Sunanda, my loyal friend. NYC here. Jake King, Fairfield representing in New York City. You guys should meet New York. How much do I miss New York? Sup from Earth. Thank you there, Ben. Good Earth, Pearl Buck, Sensation Chan. How do you like that? For some positive literary heckling. I thought that was pretty good. When I gave my Pearl Buck review in English class, in Mrs. Gottsy's class in Fairfield, I said it was a good Earth, and I brought in good. I forget what was good, but the Earth, I brought in a globe, and then I held up a pearl and then a buck. I was like, this is my book report. And honestly, I just really wanted to do that. And interestingly enough, Mrs. Godsey, rest in peace, one of my best teachers I've ever had. The English department at Fairfield High School was freaking nuts. When they love the vocabulary, I've learned too. Freaking nuts. How's that for an adjective? Well, an adverb and an adjective. Is that what that is? It was crazy. They were amazing. And I remember what Mrs. Godsey said to me. She goes, you are going to have to learn to cut out the side comments because you'll never be a good speaker. You know what, Mrs. Godsey? That's like when John Lennon's aunt, because I'm John Lennon, told him, that's all fun and games with a guitar, but it's not like you can make a living from it. You know what? I make a living because of my side comments. So, Mrs. Godsey, you're right about a lot of things. You're wrong about that one. You're wrong about that one, Sonny. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Anand Rao, hello, hello. Good to see you. Don't make me come over there. Greg, we're going to get into it. You could be my counterbalance, just like EJ Skoldager was last week. My 22-year-old military vet friend who signed in last week. I don't know if he came back again. Mrs. Robinson was great too. You're right. Mrs. Burkhart. Some great teachers at the English department there. Mrs. Wilson, who helped me with my speech. By the way, if you're ever giving a speech in front of a bunch of people, she gave me the first tip I ever heard, and it's still the best tip I ever heard with public speaking. We were working on the speech, and it was commencement, and I was the class president. I was giving the speech, and I made a couple mistakes in rehearsal. I know. Imagine that. I made a mistake. Shocking. I admit it on live. You can't save this now. I'm going to have to delete it. And she stopped me, and she asked, how many people of the 2,000 that were going to be in the audience have a copy of your speech? How many people in the audience have a copy of your speech? I said, well, nobody. She goes, that's right. They're not going to know you made a mistake unless you let them know. That's ingenious. That is great. Great advice for anybody who's public speaking. They're not going to let you know. They're not going to know unless you let them know. That's it. Amazing, amazing advice. Speech class. And I took speech, I think. No, I don't think I did. I didn't take speech class. I didn't take speech class. I didn't do enough theater, and I didn't do debate. Why? Why didn't I do those things? What was I thinking? How come I didn't do more theater? I was in the pit in the orchestra. Then I was backstage, and then I was on stage as the only Indian farmer in Oklahoma, where Trump will be going, Tulsa, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. My gosh, blow away the farts. How many times you go to drop the class president thing? Like every time, of course, my crowning achievement. I peaked in high school. You think I was a football player selling cars? That's what football players end up doing. I didn't realize. I always wondered, what do football players end up doing after high school? They sell cars. Do you ever think about that? That's what they do. It's weird. That's an odd. I know that now. So when you go to a car dealership, most likely that guy played football in high school. I'm not saying they peaked in high school. Hi, Mom. Hope you're doing well. It is great to see you. I know you're in Cincinnati. I know you're in Fairfield. And I want to read some of the things that people said they learned. Because I asked you, what did you learn about racism in the last couple of weeks? From New Zealand. Wow, that's awesome. Boston, New Zealand. Aren't you guys, some of you eradicated COVID? It's gone, right? It's done. You guys did it. Because of your cute prime minister. Can I call her cute? Is that sexist? Not sexist. She's cute. Okay, so here's what I would say. She's pretty attractive. Here's what I would say. Okay, this is what y'all said when I asked what you learned. And Sunanda said you did all of those. Speech, debate, and theater. I'm so jealous. Austin is in a time of turmoil, says Danielle. And if you like all of the visuals you see, that's because of Danielle. You guys need a good designer. Danielle Brancazio Spencer down in Austin is incredible. She's an incredible designer and a good person. This is what she's saying. Jake, the Indian farmer in OK was my peak. No, class president, peak. What was my peak? I don't know. I peaked. It's over. But I'll find out what it was. I'll tell you. Austin is in a time of turmoil. This liberal city, in quotes, liberal city, because we're actually going to put this out on radio, Dash Radio. So I should make this as audio as possible, oral as possible. Austin is in a time of turmoil. This liberal city, quote unquote, is not very liberal. Have you heard about the latest live PD controversy? That happened in Austin. We need police reform ASAP. Austin is liberal for Texas. Yes, I did see that. I saw the Can't Breathe video from March 25th, it may have been. And my concern when I heard that was someone saying it after George Floyd? No, this was 2 months before. That's how you know you're getting hipsters. You're ahead of the curve. It's terrible. It's horrendous. It's just unbelievable what's been happening. And we have to do something about it. And we're going to talk about some solutions here. Here is what some of y'all said. So let me pull up the responses I got, because I asked a lot of you for what did you learn about racism in the last couple of weeks? And this is what a number of you said. And I'll tell you what I learned. And I tell you what, not trying to be all clickbait. You'll never believe, number 17. You'll never believe what I learned. It's actually been extremely helpful. But I want to start with y'all because I asked you what you learned. And I tend to make things about me, as my wife knows, as Goin Fish Curry Loves signs in. Yes, I just had fish, by the way. It wasn't Goin. It was Gujarati, because that's what my wife is. But it was good. I will tell you that. Okay, let's read some of the things you guys said. Kulraj, I'm on your program tomorrow. I'm on the radio with Kulraj. He just launched his own program called Unlock on Indus TV. I'm going to be on the radio interview with him. You guys should tune into this guy. I've known this guy 20 years. Okay. Here you go. This is what you guys said. Okay. You said, and when I asked what is the most insightful thing you've heard about racism in the last fortnight, I got a number of comments. And let's see what you wrote, because I think these are great. Not all of them are great. I'm not going to call out the ones I don't think are great, but you probably could tell from my tone, because I wear my heart on my sleeve. Ina Roy wrote, I've learned about racism for the last 38 years, much of it insightful, too much to write here. I know, but that's not helpful. I want to know what you've learned in the last 2 weeks. You are an enlightened soul, but it's a journey. But Ina Roy, you should follow her. She's got really, really good stuff to say. I've enjoyed her posts a lot. Down in South Africa, right? Casey Cook, she is the sister of my friend Kyle and my friend Kelly in Cincinnati. Not so much that I learned it, but I loved how BLM was described to people who did not understand it. It's not that BLM is saying that no one else matters. It's that right now we're solely focusing on that fact that Black Lives Matter just as much as everyone else. That's right. Have you guys seen the analogy about the house on fire? That's what it's like. It's the house on fire when somebody's saying, but all houses matter. What about my house? And my friend Anita, was it Anita Chandra who sent that to me? The two women, might have been a woman and a girl. I don't know how old she is, but the woman, the girl and her mom, the female and her mom, how's that? The mom and her daughter, there you go. They talked about how to explain Black Lives Matter to the South Asian community. And part of it was this, like, why isn't it all lives matter, or brown lives matter, blue lives matter? Because I had somebody, I'm not going to call the person out by name, although I may start doing that. You never know. I already have done that with a lot of people. What am I saying? Is that, you know, it's not the time for brown lives matter and blue lives matter. Why? Because those houses are not on fire. And they do a great job of explaining that we go through some prejudice. We don't go through as much discrimination. Those are not their words. But that's what I'm telling you. Prejudice is a mindset. Discrimination is an action. Okay? So our house is not on fire like anti-blackness. That's on fire, son. That's what we have to take care of. So that's why it's important to focus on that. So thanks, Casey, for that insightful comment. And it sparked other ideas for me. My mom wrote from Fairfield, Ohio, where there was a march. I couldn't believe there was a march in Fairfield, Ohio. That's where it really hit home for me. Hamilton, where I was born, Fairfield, where I grew up. You know, big cities, we march. That's what we do, especially under COVID. I think a lot of these protests are a lot bigger because of COVID. People want to get out of the house. It's a compounding scenario. What do they call those? Network effects? They call that a paradox. What movie is that? And in Fairfield, they marched. My mom is writing from Fairfield, and she wrote, and I'm having my chai. My mom wrote, I've learned that everyone has a breaking point when they feel enough is enough. Humanity is alive when you see so many people of various backgrounds coming together to change the system. I am learning that change is sadly slow to come. It should be a no-brainer that many practices need to change for the better, but we still see people's complacency. If not now, then when? We don't want to live in an America where a handcuffed person can die in broad daylight and others don't do anything to prevent it, especially when the passerby were urging the cops to let it go. This is a nightmare we cannot afford repeated. I agree, Mom, completely. And then my friend Alan Curl, where did they find these people? What movie is that? Alan Curl from Fairfield wrote that he's been complacent. That's great when people admit that. I love when people come and start with their own faults, foibles, and flaws, because that's the only way we move forward. So good on you, Alan. A lot of us have been complacent, and I'm going to get to that. Shelley Desai, an actor out here, has been a Curb Your Enthusiasm, good guy, came to my birthday party. He wrote, life is precious. We should protect and preserve each one of them. We all bleed red, no matter what our skin color is. I say that. That's great. We all bleed red. I do, especially because I love the Cincinnati Reds. But, you know. Gordon Kwok wrote, insight into the origin of U.S. policing and how the legacy of slavery plays out in the American psyche today. American police, and he links to an NPR article. Guys, this is really key, because I think what a lot of people forget a lot of the time is, you know, and Utkar, a friend of mine and an actor, the guy who rapped on stage, if you watched the Oscars this year, he rapped on stage, included Brad Pitt in his rhymes. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he posted a video of mine from 5 years ago on MSNBC. It got a lot of views. Some people didn't take it the right way because, you know, people are very stupid. So that's, if you take nothing else out of this, you'll know that that's what I think about people generally. So, but he posted, and then Freda Pinto liked it. So that's really why I'm telling you this. The woman from Slumdog Millionaire. That's really why I'm bringing it up in conversation. Is, you know, I talked about how I transferred schools to the University of Cincinnati from Case Western Reserve University, and I was #1 in my class in engineering. There you go, Jake. There's another 20-year-old accomplishment for you. Well, the reason I bring it up is, so you know, I was #1 in my class. No, the reason I bring it up is because the reason I was #1 a lot of it is I skipped a lot of the weed out courses. I skipped organic chemistry. I skipped Physics 3, some of the really tough ones, and I was able to build my GPA on the latter classes. So that's what Indians did. Asians and Indians, South Asians and East Asians came to this country, and they were only allowed as the top tier, the cream of the crop, a rise to the top, never eat a pig as a cop. They're the ones who got in. So, you know, you're comparing the cream of the crop of any country to folks who had to endure, came here against their will. They were not, blacks were not immigrants of choice, the immigrants of necessity or being forced to be here. And that's also, by the way, a lot of the time why the U.S. public system which the US public school system is not good. But part of the reason it gets really bad ratings also is because it's compulsory here. So you're comparing all of American students to sometimes the cream of the crop of other countries. So even though we're not probably first in math, certainly, I don't think we're 27th either. So it works both ways. People forget that sometimes. So he quietly did that, sometimes not so quietly. And Anand Rao wrote that a lot of Desi folks really thought they were white. You know what? Guilty as charged, because I grew up in Fairfield, and the first syllable is fair. I mean, I was treated like just anyone else, and so I didn't really own my Indianness, not out of embarrassment, but there was no critical mass. There were what, two of us? Sheila and I were the only two Indian people in our class, right? Out of 500. What are we going to start a club? Start the spelling bee club. That's what's up, because we were the top two. So there's another accomplishment, Jake. I'm going to just keep dropping accomplishments now from the 19th century, or the 1900s. So my dad, thank you. Good to see you, Dad. And then Meena Kapoor wrote, stamped from the beginning by Ibrahim X. Kendi to learn the roots of racism. Okay, I will read that. Great to see you, Preeti Poindexter. That's diversity right there. How do you like that? Preeti Poindexter. You gotta love that. That's America for you. That's America in a name. I hosted a show once, and there was a woman there, a girl, I think at the time, and her name was Priscilla Habib. It's still the best name I've ever heard in my life. Priscilla Habib. It's kind of like how the most common first name in the world is Muhammad, and the most common last name is Chang, but you don't meet that many Muhammad Changs. Have you ever met a Muhammad Chang? I'd like to meet. If you know what a Muhammad Chang, I want to meet one, because that would be amazing. Organic chemistry, I didn't get the formulas and combinations. Dude, the reactions. My wife's a pharmacist. Organic chemistry, screw organic chemistry. You know what's even worse? Inorganic chemistry. I thought we were doing inorganic. No. You get to discrete math and you learn the rest of it was continuous, but not all of non-organic chemistry was inorganic. I was confused. I needed better nomenclature in a chemistry class. Linda Burton is here. Hello, Linda Burton. Say hello to Helga for me. We thought a lot of cities were liberal. Well, cities tend to be blue, counties tend to be red. And that's part of what I think one of the solutions may be. And I understand that this isn't really that practical. But guys, there was a professor in 1998, a Russian professor, who talked about how the United States is going to break into 4 pieces, okay? I think he's probably right. But I understand why this won't work, and I understand the downsides of this, but think about the downsides of where we are. Could we do this? Could we do it so that we have blue cities and red counties? Can we just make the counties around the cities, like Austin's in Travis County, right? LA's in LA County, and most of the county here is liberal. It's blue. So can we have it so that abortion is legal, you can't carry guns, all like liberal paradise, higher taxes, more stuff, whatever. And then in the counties, you can have guns, you can't have abortions. We just split, but we keep it like that. You have blue cities and red counties, which is already what we have. Then everybody's happy. Everybody parks, everybody wins. Can we try that? Can we try to I understand why we don't do that, for the same reason that states, like they can't get too disparate. You got to have some federal laws, but they're not all like that. There's certain things that are legal in some states that aren't legal in other states, like marijuana. So why can't we try that? I understand that the culture would change greatly, but hasn't it already? Wouldn't people be happy with that? You live out in the country, it's pro-life, you can have all the guns you want, and if you want an abortion, you don't want to get shot, you go to the city. Isn't that kind of already what we have? Could that be the compromise? Could that be the compromise? It's called segregation, but it's not mandatory. It's not mandatory. In other words, you can move free flow. You can move back and forth. It's not like, oh, you can't come into the city or you can't go out in the country. But we wouldn't probably, right? Would most people of color go out into the country? I don't think they would. I'm not saying all people of color are liberal. Thank you, my guys are awesome. I appreciate that. I'll talk to Priya Rai for you. My mom is a wise woman. She is a wise woman. That is very true. There's no one I know better than my mom. She's on the other level. She's about to attain nirvana. That's what I always tell her. Jerry Wan wrote, also some folks are so hateful and racist that being filmed does not deter their hatred and even murder. I know. That's depressing. That's a depressing thought. But you're right, it doesn't. The look in the face of like, I'm going to do this anyway. All Mohammed Changs are in Eastern China. Could be. You know what I think is sad? When our own people are racist to each other just because someone's color in their own race. So that's an important point, Preeti. Colorism and racism are neighbors or cousins, but they're not exactly the same thing. So colorism is a big problem and big issue in the Indian community. And it also is in the Black community, from what I know. I guess it is in the white community in that it's not great to be too white. And that's the only consolation sometimes for me, is that when somebody's too white and too pale, I don't mean an albino, but I mean people who are just so light, most of the time they want to get tanned so they look quote unquote better. So I guess the only redeeming quality is that it's possible to be too white and it's possible to be too Black according to colorism. But that's the only redeeming quality there. It's not much of a redeeming quality, just to be clear. But you arrived at what I was thinking. We would go where we think. Yeah, we would self-segregate. It's like when you have assigned seating in high school, you don't have it in college, right? You get so pissed off throughout high school that you have assigned seats. You get to college, there's no assigned seats usually, and we sit in the same seat all the time anyway. I sat in the same spot. If someone were sitting in my chair, I was like, why are you sitting in my chair? It's not your chair. But I sat in the same spot anyway. We self-sort. So that's my point, just self-sort. People already do that with states. Jonathan Haidt talks about this, lifestyle enclaves. You kind of already have gone to places where people believe what you believe, right? Until you get on Nextdoor and you realize these guys are just jackasses. You get on Nextdoor, people are idiots. So I agree with you about the tanning. But it's not hypocrisy. That's what I'm telling you. Sonali, it's not hypocrisy. It's that we've defined a spectrum that is functional, because when you're too light, you get burned by the sun. It's not fun being that light, from what I understand. I just learned the difference between sunscreen and suntan lotion because I never had to think about it. I could have thought about it and figured it out, but I never had to think about it. Somebody's like, oh, did you get the sunscreen? And I accidentally called it suntan lotion. They're like, no, I'm not trying to get a tan. I need sunscreen. I'm like, oh, they're two different things. Why would I care if I ever wear sunscreen? I don't ever have to wear it. I know one of my favorite songs is Everybody's Free to Wear Sunscreen. You're supposed to wear it, especially here in LA. But I rarely wear it. I sometimes wear a hat, but I don't have to because I'm in that color spectrum. So my point is, it's like height. And I've made this point before, not Jonathan Haidt. It's the idea of being 5'10" as a man is ideal. This is getting a little controversial, but it is, right? If you're 6'5", that sucks. I have friends who are that tall. They hate it. Unless they went to the NBA, it's not fun being that tall. Just like it's not fun being this short. I can't stand being 5'6". I always said if I were 3 inches taller, I would have been married 10 years ago. Fact. There's an ideal height for men. And I've asked my wife, I'm like, what's the ideal height for women? What's a good height? And she's, yeah, like 5'3". She goes, you're tall enough, but you have the pick of the litter when it comes to men. You could marry a man who's 5'6", which she did, soaking wet. Or you could marry a man who's 7'8", which I can't stand, by the way. Those short women who take the big men who take the short women off the market, that drove me crazy. And the women who are 5'2" going, well, I can't marry a guy who's 5'6", my kids will be short. Okay, so then who wants to be with a guy who's 5'6"? I got my revenge. I married a beautiful woman. Screw all the women who are 5'2". Oh, I did some of them. This already occurs. Why I live in a city and didn't stay in the county, right? The county or the country, which are kind of the same thing sometimes. So thank you, Sonali. No, thanks for the clarification there. So what else people have realized and they've learned is, John Oliver broadcasted about it. Hassan Minhaj broadcasted about it. I haven't watched Oliver's yet. Hassan's is great, of course. Minhaj did a great job with his commentary. I've never seen him so pissed off. Well, we threw a couple parties, and I think that's what I can clean up after, in the apartment. I saw him that mad a couple times, but not on TV. No, he's a great roommate. I learned that Blacks should not be called African Americans because they don't all originate from there. Mrs. Simmons, speaking of great teachers from Fairfield High School, that is true. And definitions are important. Because I've met African Americans who don't really like when non-African Americans say the word black. And that's understandable. To each his own, to each their own. But at the end of the day, you know, black is more accurate, because you're exactly right. People can come from the Caribbean. They can come from other places. We don't have to name all the places. They could come from Europe, right? So they're not all African American. They don't all have roots in Africa. But I think the counter argument there is somewhere down the line, though, right? So Indians all come from, well, I mean, we all come from Iraq. Basically, we're all Iraqi, essentially. But, right, Tigris and Euphrates, Monongahela and whatever it's called in Pittsburgh. What's the third river? Ohio River, Monongahela, and Allegheny, is that it? So I never learned rivers. Rivers, mountains, wine, dogs, trees, flowers, these are things I don't know. That would be my nightmare scenario on Jeopardy. If it's like wine, dogs, flowers, I'm like, okay, I'm hanging up. I'm gone. I suck at all of those things. But I think I named those 3 rivers. So the Tigris and Euphrates over there, though, Indians still basically come from India. And the South Asian, the subcontinent, is basically that. So maybe that's the counter argument for black versus African American. And Gail Smith, thank you. Yes, I thought it was really salient when Alan Kroll admitted that he's been complacent. A lot of us have been. Racism is wrong, and those oppressed by it are not responsible for eradicating it. That's true. I agree. And at the same time, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is the deal. I want to be very careful here, because when people talk about, are you hopeful or hopeless? I'm both. I've learned about myself a lot. A lot of you tuned in, like 200 of you tuned in to watch Melanie Chandra and me go live on Instagram just a few hours ago. It was our largest audience ever. We were talking about all this stuff. And one of the things I mentioned is, guys, am I hopeless or hopeful? It's a roller coaster. Mostly I'm hopeless, if I'm being honest. Not mostly hopeless. I'll tell you why. Because it's hopeful to see a lot of people marching, and the marches have carried on, and that's awesome. I think the issue, though, is we tend to be really good about talking the talk and not so good about walking the walk. And the reason I bring that up is success is boring. Failure is exciting. When people ask me, how did I get where I got? I'm like, it's wash, rinse, repeat, guys. It's get up, write, perform, go back to sleep, write in the next morning. It's really boring. There's nothing exciting about success. Failure is spectacular. Failure flames out. Failure is fun to watch. That's why they're fail blogs. I failed saying the word fail. It's a different thing to get up and get people to actually enroll, go to town hall meetings, run for office. See, this is why Donald Trump is not a good president. A lot of it is he doesn't want the job. He wants the fanfare of the job, which is what Martin Sheen says in The Departed. Do you want to be a cop, or do you want to appear to be a cop? A lot of people want to appear to be cops. Gun, badge, get on TV. That's all he wants. He wants the authority of it and the flash of it, but he doesn't want to do any work. And so this is what concerns me with the left. Are we going to show up and do the work? And also, are we going to overreach? Which defund the police is totally overreaching. It's an awful slogan. I understand what's behind it. I've taken the time to research it. It's an awful slogan. I'll be the first one to tell you. I worked in marketing for years at the Page, and I'm telling you, it sucks as a slogan. It's awful because it puts us on the defensive. When you hear build the wall, it's very clear. People know what it is. You can agree with it or disagree, but people are saying it, stay on the offensive, and it is offensive. When you say defund the police, you automatically go into defense because you have to explain the 6 or 7 things that it means. Reform the police, I understand, may not be as exciting, may not be as sexy, but reform the police would get a lot more of the independence, the men in the middle, the people in the middle. And that's why liberals scare me, and the woke left scares me for that reason and others, because it's not a great slogan. It turns a lot of people off, and I don't think we need to get rid of the police. And that's what it sounds like to me. And I'm a reasonable person who can read, and I'm telling you, that's what it sounds like. You can explain it, but building a wall is building a wall. I get what it is. I don't agree with it, but I get what it is. So defund the police is not good. It's not a good slogan. And that scares me. I also feel like in every, right, Jake, good idea, horrible slogan. In every belief system, whether it's Christianity, Hinduism, capitalism, communism, they're all belief systems. And Noah Yuval Harari talks about this in Sapiens and some of his other books. People don't think of capitalism or religion or whatever. He goes, fine, throw out the definitions. Don't worry about the definitions for a second. It's a way of life. Capitalism is a way of life. Hinduism is a way of life. Christianity is a way of life. Islam is a way of life. All of those ways of life have to answer 10 basic questions. I'm not going to go through all of them right now. You can look them up. But one of them is a path back to redemption. One of the best movies ever, The Shawshank Redemption, 1994, the best year this country has ever seen. Shawshank Redemption. How do you redeem yourself? That's the problem with the woke left. They're not offering a path back. Once you transgress, and if you're an ally and you say the wrong thing, you're done. And this is the problem. We are not in a battle against our fellow citizens. We're in a battle against the isms and the phobias. Transphobia, homophobia, sexism, racism, all of these things have to be eradicated, not the people who believe them. Some people are beyond redemption. They are. They don't want it. They don't understand it, whatever else. They're a lost cause, okay? And there are a lot of people who are a lost cause. That's it. Don't waste your breath. But the people who are convincible, there are a lot of them. And you have to offer a path back. And this is the issue. When people get canceled, we're canceling this person, canceling that person. No, we have to have a dialogue. That's the only way we're going to move forward. And I feel that if the woke left is in charge of this, it's going to backfire. I'm also really afraid that the people in charge, the powers that be, already have too much power. I think sometimes that the ship has sailed, that it's too late. But it doesn't mean we don't fight. You still got to go down without a fight. You don't give up. Because I've gone back and forth. I was ranting to Hersha the other day. I'm like, I can't do another 4 years of Donald Trump. I'm moving. And she's like, where are you going to go? I'm like, well, you were born in Canada. Let's go to Vancouver. Let's go to Bombay. Let's go to Paris. Let's go to Tokyo. But, then you come back, you're like, this is my country. I'm not leaving my country. That's crazy. I'm not leaving. You have to stay here and fight and go down with the ship, right? White flag Dido, man. You got to go down with the ship. That's it. It doesn't matter. You can't leave. That's not an option. I'm not leaving. Okay. Leave the earth, maybe. Go to Mars. Maybe that'll be better. I don't know. So here's what I would say about that. That's what scares me. I feel hopeless sometimes because I think that people are just going to take it too far and they're going to take it too broad. They're just going to say Brown Lives Matter, all the other stuff. I see some people on my page and other pages trying to say, well, what about when are we going to fight for Hindus? When are we going to fight for Indians? Guys, stay focused. Solve anti-blackness first. This is insane. It would be like saying, let's go to Mars. Well, all planets matter. Why don't we go to Jupiter? Why aren't we going to Venus? Well, there are reasons we're not doing that right now. But you don't think going to Mars is a hard enough job? Can we solve anti-blackness first? Can we start there? I love how people are like, oh, let's do it all at once. Guys, this is already a hard enough job. Why are we piling more stuff on top of this? Just like my cousin Vinny, Joe Pesci. Is there any more crap we could pile onto the top of the outcome of this case? Is it possible? That's right. It's crazy. We need to focus on one thing. Let's solve that. If we solve anti-blackness in America, my gosh, you realize how big that is? Do you understand how large of a fight that is and how many other people would get the benefit of that? Because they already undergo the worst of it. So if there's no more anti-blackness, guess what? There won't be any more anti-brownness. You're just going for the worst of it, and the rest of it, by definition, will be solved. Don't you understand that? Is that not obvious? I don't know why that's not obvious to people. I don't get that. What's the counter argument? I don't get the counter argument. I really don't. Not everyone can leave, so we have to suck it up and fight for ourselves, for our fellow Americans who cannot leave. Fighting anti-blackness helps other people of color. Fighting for civil rights helps other minorities. Exactly. Yes, we're on the same page there. Well, everyone can leave. You can leave. It's not easy to leave, but you could. You could leave. It would be hard. It would be hard, but you could. Because guess what? People picked up and they moved here. And this is what drives me crazy about people not willing to move within this country. Chrissy, this is not an attack back on your comment. It made me think of another thing, and I say this to Hersha all the time. When I read Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance, I spent a lot of time in Cincinnati, ended up marrying an Indian woman, grew up in Middletown, where Sheila Mira and I used to play in the orchestra, speaking of Fairfield. And this is the issue. The thing that bothers me about Hillbilly Elegy in that entire book is a lot of people just don't want to move. They're like, well, this small town is my home, so I'm not moving. Well, Sam Kinison in the 80s did this bit, and it was really racist, but But it was really funny, and it fit the time. It's awful now. I can pull it up on YouTube and like, I can't believe you're quoting that bit. He goes in on people starving in the desert, and he tells them to move, and he screams, and I won't yell like Sam Kinison because I'll lose my voice, but he says, move. And there's a grain of truth, if not a grain of sand, in that. It's really mean. It's really mean. But there's a grain of truth in that. That's what I want to turn around to the white folks who are unwilling to move out of Eastern Kentucky and say, move. Move to a city. Are you kidding me? My parents had to leave India and come across oceans to get here. Your grandparents moved. White people's grandparents moved. The Irish moved. The Italians moved. You can't move over a few towns. Move to St. Louis, move to Chicago. You don't have to move out of the country. Are you kidding? Oh, there's no jobs because the steel mill closed down. There are jobs. They're just not where you live. Just move. And people go, well, it's not that easy. I know it's not that easy. You think it was easy for people to leave Italy and come to America? Have you seen The Godfather? Have you seen movies where people leave India and go to Bangladesh, or they go to the Maldives, they go to South Africa, they go to America, they go to Canada? You think that was easy? It's not easy. It's hard. Well, our kid doesn't want to change school districts. Really? That's the reason? After persecution and people were starving and they couldn't live and their relatives were beheaded? Oh, but my kid can't make new friends under a new mascot? Are you kidding? Move. It's not easy, but it's doable. It's crazy. People just throw up their hands like they can't do it. I didn't say it was easy. People with privilege can move easier, but you could still move. There's a difference between can't and not allowed. That's why my bio on Facebook for a long time was we can't or we're not allowed. When people say you can't make a right, you mean you can't, like there's a barricade, or it's a one-way street? Because you can make a right on a one-way street. You're just not allowed. So we got to break down some of these barriers. Old, very racist joke. And it won't make as much sense because I'm the other kind of Indian telling it, the original Indian telling it. But this man's driving down the street and a police officer pulls him over and he goes, sir, this is a one-way street. Didn't you see the arrows? And the guy goes, arrows? I didn't even see the Indians. One of my favorite jokes of all time. So offensive, so good. Now I'm on a roll. Exactly, Dad. I get start going when I have my chai. There's a lot of Eastern Kentuckians in Cincinnati and the rest of the Rust Belt, by the way. I know, Prague, and you're one of them. You come from Eastern Kentucky. Not originally, probably. A lot of Appalachians do move to Columbus and Cincinnati, Ohio. That's good. Right, so the people should move. It's insane. Okay, I made my point. They don't want to move and they don't want people of color to move in. Well, then too bad. Then too bad. Then you shouldn't live in America. Move to a homogeneous place. We'll come to that. So Cushy had a lot of great ones. Let's not put the responsibility on the Black community. Okay, here's my other point on being an ambassador. Okay, this is really, I feel very passionately about this. Okay. Y'all, we can't say to people who are genuinely trying to learn and who are clueless that you don't want to be an ambassador and you don't want to talk about it. Okay, no, that's not an option. You not can't, you shouldn't say that. My therapist will tell you there's no should and shouldn't. You know what? I fired her. Sometimes there's a should and shouldn't. You shouldn't say that. Okay, and here's why. When people are trying, point them in the right direction. Okay, because if you go, I'm not talking about that with you, it's racist, it's a microaggression even to talk about it, well, you're going to send them the other way. Then they're going to go, okay, you know what, then the hell with it, and you're going to lose them forever. And they're going to go underground, and they're going to join groups, and they're going to join chat rooms. People do chat rooms anymore? They just do Fox News. So that's what ends up happening. We have to draw people in. And you can explain why it's a microaggression, but guess what? If I'm a man in a room of 500 women, which is always great, I'm representing men. I'm representing Queen. She was raised out in Brooklyn. I'm representing men at that point in time. I didn't ask to, but if I happen to be in a place, and I have been in places where maybe it wasn't 500 women, but I was in a place where it was vast majority women, maybe 100 or more, and I'm the only man, or one of the only men. You're an ambassador for maleness. You are. You are. It doesn't matter. If you want to be, I didn't sign up for it, then leave. Then leave. But if you're in this country, you're an ambassador. That's the way it works in America. This is a social experiment. We're figuring it out. That's how it goes. Okay? You can't just throw your hands up. You shouldn't throw your hands up and say, I'm not going to explain it. I'm not going to explain trans to you. Okay, so all of a sudden we've got 50 possibilities on the drop-down menu for gender, and no one's going to explain it. Then how don't people become transphobic? and they become phobic, not an ism or an ist. They are scared now to say anything because you shut it down. You're telling people you don't even want to explain it. Well, they want to learn. I'm not saying every single time you're with your black friend, that person has to explain how they wash their hair. Of course not. But now's the time people are trying to learn. So if I'm in a room and I'm the only Indian, and it's not only white people, it's all black, white, Asian, everyone else, and I'm the only Indian person in there, I'm representing Indians. That's the way it is. It is. Perception's reality. It doesn't matter if you don't think that. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think. It's the perception. And that's the only way we're going to change it, is people are going to enroll people in these discussions. Not my job. Okay, well then it's not their job to learn. How's that? If it's not your job to teach, it's not their job to learn. It's nobody's job and it's everybody's job. You saw the chicken thing, the high school. I think everything we ever needed to learn wasn't just in kindergarten. It was in Mrs. Kotze's class. Whose job is it? Right? Nobody, everybody, somebody, and you know what I'm talking about. My mom loves that. Mom loved that thing. Mrs. Reinhardt, speaking of the English department, I saw a picture of a protester carrying a sign that said, "Sorry, I'm late. I had a lot to learn." I agree. And that's why we have to welcome people into the mix whenever they come here. Okay. What about reformed gang members? They're the ones who are getting kids not to join gangs. What about alcoholics who are then at Alcoholics Anonymous and they're now reforming? Would you rather advice from a person who knows what you're going through, or I've never been an alcoholic, so you want advice from me? No, you want advice from a fellow addict who's been down the path. So there was a white woman on Jonathan Capehart's podcast, and this is my insight. This is what I learned, okay? Because Mona Roy wrote, people are interested in performative activities, and I agree with you, Mona. And Parag, yes, the FBI did some really, really crazy stuff, which is why I'm pro-gun. People always go, I can't believe you're pro-gun. I'm pro-gun with restrictions. But yes, the government is pretty terrible. It's not good. They've done a lot. They sold crack in South Central LA to finance wars. They sold them to black people. Yes, they've done a lot of anti-black things. Lots. I don't even just trust the government with this, okay? Can't trust that. We all got it. That's what I'm saying. It's the people. So white woman on Jonathan Capehart's podcast. I didn't realize Jonathan Capehart is black. And I like how my voice went down on black. It's like when Indians are talking about there's someone black, Kala, they get laryngitis. So Jonathan Capehart has this white woman on. I can't remember her name, but she was just appearing on CBS's Justice for All. Really good special that happened this week. We happened to catch it. Saw Vanitha Gupta, the lawyer, representing South Asians, doing it. If Kamala Harris won't. So this woman, I can't remember her name, and I'm sorry. She was explaining to Jonathan Capehart, you know how podcasts now start with a provocative statement? You got to get them right away, right? And she says, I don't think white people are interested in solving racial inequality. Bam, starts there, goes from there. He cries at the end of this podcast, okay? And I've seen him on talking head shows. I didn't realize that's who it is. Super bright guy. Here's what she said, and it is the most insightful thing I've heard in the last fortnight. This is it. This is everything. This, to me, is the most important thing that I have learned about racism in the last 2 weeks, honestly. And it's better than everything you guys wrote. This is what she said. You guys wrote some great stuff. I'm kidding, not kidding. This is what she said. She said the biggest problem with how we approach racism in America, and perhaps around the world, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that we've taught racism as a personal, individual, moral failing when it is a systemic failing, okay? When you say to somebody you're racist or you did something racist, again, just like defund the police, it puts people on the defensive. And they think I'm not racist. And she listed the things people say to her when they try to explain that they could never be racist. I had a black roommate. What, did the college assign you? I grew up in Canada. I've been to Costa Rica. And Jonathan Capehart can't believe she's saying these things. Yes, that's what people say. I've been to Costa Rica, therefore I can't be racist. What does that even mean? It's completely nonsensical. You put people on the defensive when they have to accept that it's an individual moral failing. It's not. It's a systemic failing. It is a failure of the system. We grew up in a racist and transphobic patriarchy. And so it's a spectrum. It means we're all racist. We're all chauvinistic. We're all transphobic. We're all homophobic. We all are. It's a spectrum. Just like the spectrum, it's a spectrum. Some people are less than others, but we all are. That's the issue. You approach it that way. Dave Chappelle, speaking of transphobia, watch his bird revelation. Equanimity in the bird revelation. I'm not just saying that since I opened for him, Jake. There you go. There's another accomplishment for me. Watch the bird revelation in the belly room at the Comedy Store when he talks about apartheid in South Africa, okay? I think he gives the definitive take on the Me Too movement, and I understand that's a controversial statement since he is a man. I encourage you to watch it. He talks about how fear does not create a lasting peace. And he says, by all measures, and according to history, the end of apartheid in South Africa should have been a bloodbath. But it wasn't, because Desmond Tutu and Nelson Mandela and all these guys got together. What's Africa? See that? Got together and they decided that when the system is oppressive, everybody's a victim, including the oppressors. You have to put the system on trial. Putting the white officer who murdered George Floyd on trial is necessary, and it has to happen. And he better be convicted of at least third, if not second degree murder. Maybe first, because they're saying that he knew him. Okay, but let me get back to the point. The system has to go on trial. And that's the main point. We're all racist. We're all chauvinistic. And that's why it's a journey. And when you say this person said something racist and you cancel that person, especially when it was before we were even talking about this stuff, right? Well, then you've lost those people, you've lost those votes, you send them to the other side. We have to put the system on trial. That's what we're talking about. It's really important that the officer go down for murder, but it's more important that the system is reformed, because that's one person. We're talking about 328 million people, and then the whole world, because we're all doing this now. That's the point. Okay? Good. I'm glad, Chrissy, you've been an ambassador. We all are. We all are. White people can be ambassadors too. If you're the only white person in a room full of other diverse, quote unquote, people, it's the same thing. It's the same idea. And that's what I'm trying to drive at. What else have I learned? Based on watching a lot of the shows that have no audiences, most comedians aren't remotely funny. Get it? Remotely funny? I thought that was pretty good. They're not. Without audiences, most of them are garbage. I also want to give a shout out to South Asians for Black Lives Matter and for a lot of the people who are standing up. Okay? And so Aaron Tillman, a friend of mine, wrote, but dude, those comments from way back don't happen in a vacuum. And that's true. That is true. So people who have shown a pattern, it is important to try to onboard them. But if they won't come along, and I mentioned this earlier, some people are irredeemable. They don't want to be redeemed. They're to their core racist. You're right. I don't think there's a lot we could do there. But we got to offer a path back for redemption. Something I covered earlier, but you're right about that. Some people don't want to be saved. I'm the hero of the story. I don't need to be saved. So the other thing I would tell you is don't attack the joke makers. Okay, don't attack the comedians, because that's easy. That's easy. And I know that's self-serving to say, but honestly, it's really easy to go after the joke when actually the jokes are signposts to show you where the problems are. The jokes wouldn't be funny if those problems didn't exist. So instead of persecuting the comedians, freaking go after the real problem where the problem is buried. That's the deal. That's the whole idea. So thank you, Annie. I'm glad you like Tutu and Mandela, that example, Dave Chappelle's example, I should say, because I thought that was brilliant. That changed it for me. Fear does not make a lasting peace. The key now, guys, is to keep it going. And I got to tell you, Americans don't like being this divided. We don't like it. We don't like it. You know, and I think that's the biggest reason I fear that Donald Trump will win again. But I think if he doesn't, the two counter arguments, the ones I always make to people, are two of them. I go, one, aren't you tired? Aren't you tired? We tried it. We took the red pill. Like, it didn't work. I told you all of 2015 and 2016 that it was an awful idea to vote for him. People did. And now you saw, and we turned out to be right. Why do I talk about being right so much? Why? So you listen to me now. It's not to brag on what I was right. I'd rather win than be right. I've talked to you about that before. I wish I were wrong and he were a great president. That's the ridiculous thing, is Donald Trump could have been the greatest president of all time because his base was already locked. He could shoot someone in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any supporters. Well, then why didn't you reach out to people of color? Why didn't you reach out to the left? Why didn't you reach out to the center? If the base was never going to go anywhere, then why didn't you expand the base? You just said they were never going to leave you. Well, then expand the base. It didn't make any sense, so we've tried it now. Okay, we tried it that way. Aren't you tired? Aren't you exhausted of being divided and fighting? And Donald Trump's not the sole problem. He's a symptom, but he's poured gasoline on the fire and made it worse. You can argue whether being divisive or not is the right tactic, but he is divisive. Can we just stop? Can we just get back to normal? And that segues into the second point. This is America. This is the me society. I want to get back to talking about me. You know, when people talked about how the people at the top were corrupt, and they are. Look at Jeff Epstein, look at Jeff Bezos and all the Jeffs. There's another Jeff that I got, Jeffrey Tambor, that doesn't count. There's only Jeff that I could think of. Did he pass away? Shoot, that was a bad reference. I don't think I made a bad reference there. My bad. Sorry. I'm just word associating at that point. So it reminds me of my dad, though, in Arrested Development. He's a dad in Arrested Development. He looks like my dad in Arrested Development. So maybe that's where I went with that. My point is, right now, the rich are corrupt, okay? But the problem is that we were able to avoid all that. That was those folks living that way. You know, Midnight Train to Georgia, Midnight Train to Georgia, Gladys Knight in the Pips. I'd rather live in his world than live without him in mine. Donald Trump forces us to live in his world. That's what I don't like. Before we could ignore it. You could turn off the TV. Obama wasn't this in your face. Neither was Bush. Neither was Reagan. People think about them as larger than life, but you could avoid them. It is not just social media. Donald Trump wants to be in our face all the time. I get it. I'm done. I don't want to live in his world anymore. I want to get back to going to parties and talking about me. Don't you want to talk about you? Isn't that what we're all about? I don't want to talk about him anymore. I want to talk about me. That's America. That's the argument. That's the way he goes, is we go, can we just make politics boring again? Make politics boring again. Just put Biden in there. He's going to be asleep half the time. He's going to be your senile grandfather who dozes off and you can change the channel. Isn't that the best thing? He has the remote. He passes out. You grab the remote. I'll take senile grandfather over angry I'll take senile grandfather over angry grandfather any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Because senile grandfather passes out, he falls asleep in his chair. We can grab the remote. We will grab the remote from Joe Biden and we'll drive. No, Greg Murray, you can't say that was Obama's fault. I will not allow you to say that. No, it is not Obama's fault. You can't say that. That's just factually untrue. Get off of Fox News, okay? Obama never spoke that way. Bush never spoke that way. I didn't like George W. Bush, but he never spoke that way. George W. Bush talked about being a uniter, not a divider. I didn't agree with him, but he tried to unite us. Obama did not speak that way. Was he condescending? Sure. But did he try to include people? Yes. Did Bush? Yes. Clinton, Reagan, all the way back. Probably not Nixon, but look what Nixon did. If you look at Trump's approval rating now, it's not as bad as some presidents who turned out to be great, which is hard to evaluate in real time. He has a better approval rating than Truman did. Now, Truman's regarded as one of our greatest presidents. That's something that we could talk about another time. That goes down a whole different path. But you can't say that, okay? No, you're self-selecting by saying black leaders say it. No, maybe one or two nutcases would say that. I could find one or two nutcases who would say the same thing about Gandhi. And Gandhi is not a universally loved figure in India, but it's difficult to deny that he's a father of the country, of India. So no, I don't think you could say tonally that it was Obama or Bush. You can't. You're factually incorrect. It's not an opinion. You're factually incorrect. That's just not true. Twitter is a crazy thing, just like him. They should have just they should shut down Twitter. I don't understand why they don't just shut down Twitter. Who needs it? It's stupid. You would cut Trump off at the knees. Just shut the whole damn thing down. You know, just shut it down. I don't know why we need it. I think it's the dumbest invention probably ever. I hate Twitter. I don't understand why it even exists. So I will end by saying, because we're coming up on an hour, and we're pretty darn close, I think, to an hour. I think I've tried to include all the comments here from you that I have, and that's the deal. Jeffrey Tambor, he's my mentor, acting teacher extraordinaire. I tell you what, Jeffrey Tambor is a great actor. I 100% agree with that. Okay, folks, I'm going to wrap it up, but here, let me end with a couple of points that I always try to save the best for last, right? So I always try to go out strong. One thing I love, and Greg, maybe you'll agree with me on this, is when white people say, well, there's police brutality against white people too. And there is. There's a black woman on Twitter who posted, well, then why aren't you marching against police brutality? Where's the justice in saying, well, they kill white people too, so let's go home? Why aren't we all marching against police brutality and systemic racism that affects everybody? I don't understand that concept. Cops kill white people too. Well, then they shouldn't be, unless they have to. I don't understand that. I just don't get why we aren't all marching, because black folks should be marching, but we all should be. And when people say, well, he wasn't a saint, you know, I love that argument too. You know, he wasn't a saint, George Floyd or any of these people. He had fentanyl in his system or whatever else. That's why the cops deal with people. They deal with people who aren't saints. That's the point. It's not that people are saints and look how well the cops treated him. That's like a teacher and saying, well, the teachers were great because the best people in the class with the highest IQ all did well. No, they were going to do great anyway. Dan Barry and Chris Berg and Mark Singer were going to kill it anyway. I want to know what you're doing for the kids at the bottom. What's the delta? Gym class, Mr. Staggs. That's how we were graded. And then my dad told me this was the Montessori method. I didn't know my dad went to a Montessori school in India, but he did. That's what it is. It's a delta, right? And in the video I was talking to you about earlier, that the Indian females made was the delta of like how far blacks have come, how far Indians have come. Sometimes not that far. You were the cream of the crop in India and you went to this much in America. Blacks had to fight redlining, Jim Crow, slavery, and they went to here. It's the delta is different. So it's a totally insane argument to even say that. He wasn't a saint, of course. How do you treat the people at the bottom? How do you take care of the most vulnerable? That's what Jesus Christ said. Take care of the poor. How are you treating the most vulnerable? How are we treating the people who aren't saints? That's the point. That's how the society is measured, by how we treat them. Not the people who are law-abiding citizens who are complying anyway. What argument is that? Oh, he wasn't a saint. Of course he wasn't. That's the point. He was an average Joe. That's what makes this resonate. If he were a saint, then people wouldn't see themselves in him. But here's a guy who had dreams, and he ends up being a security guard. He's an average Joe. That's the point, is he's an average Joe walking down the street. Not that he's a saint. It doesn't make any sense to make that argument. Nobody's arguing he was a saint. And I agree that the eulogy probably did go a little bit far. He was this, he was that, he was put on a pedestal. Yes, but he just died. That's what you say about people who just died. They are put on a pedestal. It's somebody's funeral. That's what you do. You talk about people, their good qualities. You don't go, well, here's your WDP assessment. I think you could increase your capacity. He's dead. Of course he's going to be lionized. That's what you do to the dead. God bless the dead. Hashtag Tupac. That's what I'm saying. Rest in peace, Biggie Smalls, not Jeffrey Tambor. So that's what I would say. And that's what I want to say is that Black Lives Matter is not Me Too. Okay, this isn't the splash zone of racism, everybody getting in the mix and saying, well, me too, brown lives, blue lives, all lives, blah, blah, blah. No, this is not Me Too. Black Lives Matter is not Me Too. They are two different things, which, by the way, was started by a black woman, Tarana Burke. We forget that. It was Alyssa Milano who made it big, and that's great. But Tarana Burke, a black woman, started Me Too. And I'm surprised people aren't talking about that. So you talk about, well, what difference? Why should we fight for black lives? Well, a black woman started Me Too and made lives better for women everywhere. So how about that argument? And Greg, I'll say that about Trump. How is this your guy? This is the guy you want representing you? I'll have Obama represent me. I'd have Bush represent me. As a person, as a human being, I didn't agree with a lot of what Bush did, but I thought he held himself with decorum. I thought he was dumb, but I also thought that he was. I think he's a good person. I think he made a lot of stupid mistakes, like Iraq and the tax cuts and all the other stupid things he did. But was I ashamed in the sense of like, oh, this guy is trying to divide America? No, I don't. I think that he's not a bad dude from that standpoint. And I'm just grateful, guys, that I can watch the NFL again. I had boycotted the NFL. I don't usually boycott. I boycotted the NFL. I didn't watch the Super Bowl this year for the first time since the 80s. And now that Roger Goodell has gotten on board, thank you. Because after Colin Kaepernick kneeled and the NFL didn't get on board, I was done with the NFL. I actually did stop watching it. And my wife turns on football more than I do. She loves football. I would still watch college and high school from Cincinnati and Friday Night Lights, but I would not watch the NFL, and now I can again. Thank God, because it's my favorite sport. I love football. American football is the greatest thing ever. So I can watch the NFL again. And now the NBA has become my favorite league, and I'm now more into basketball, which is what happens. See? NFL turned me away, and I found someone else. I found the NBA. That's what will happen if you don't be an ambassador for race. They'll turn you away. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Satyal Comes Alive, the Frampton edition, on Instagram Live, which went off after an hour. I don't usually go more than an hour. YouTube, thanks to the folks on YouTube who signed in and have me on your screens. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for signing in. Greg, I'm glad. Okay, I hope you don't like Trump. We can continue this conversation. That's good. Haven't given up on you yet. You're a good dude. And that's the deal. Thank you to everybody for tuning in. I hope I addressed all of your comments. I think I did. If not, I'll get you next week. I'll cover some of that next week. You guys have been amazing. Follow me at Funny Indian on all these platforms. And I think that is everything I wanted to say. So thank you. All right, everybody. We'll see you soon. Black Lives Matter. If not, I'll get you next week. I'll cover some of that next week. You guys have been amazing. Follow me at Funny Indian on all these platforms. And I think that is everything I wanted to say. So thank you. All right, everybody. See you soon. Black Lives Matter. YouTube, guys, I'm sorry I didn't get to all these comments. Babik, say something funny. I'm not being funny. No, these rants are not always funny, but there was some funny stuff in there. I got mad. I hope you saw me get mad. 8th Funk Chill, will you save this live stream? Yes, I will. Talk about how Indian people call Black people Kalu. Did you catch that? I did say that. Manunar Iron from Cincinnati. What else? The one guy who was on a meditation retreat for 75 days and missed the COVID-19 pandemic and George Floyd's murder. There was a man when we went to Houston. He ran India House in Sugar Land, and he was on a 10-day retreat and missed Hurricane Harvey and came back to his house being water damaged. Unbelievable. Don't go to ashrams. All 4 of us are here. Let's go. What's going on? Moms are the first guru. That is true. My God, that's so true. Once there's, why don't you teach all Indian immigrants how to talk like you English? I know. I'm very good with English. I got a perfect on my ACT English. Okay, Fung says to fun and game, shut up. Okay, fine. Be Vardhan, because cultural diversity is incredibly important. It is. Hey, where is Rajiv G reading comments from? From Facebook. I mentioned at the very beginning, I should have said it again, should have run on the board. Facebook.com/funnyindian. That's usually where I answer these. Most Indians would vehemently deny the idea that Gandhiji is the father of the nation, but not because of any other reason other than it would be to deny the struggle of freedom fighters in history. No, that you can't really say that, and I'll tell you why. He was, Nehru was, there were a lot of people in there, but I don't think that they shouldn't say that he is not the father of the country or that he didn't play a big role. Okay, there were other people too, but I don't think that one can deny what Gandhi did. But good. Thanks for the discussion, guys, and always appreciate the comments, whether positive or negative. I appreciate your signing in, and we'll catch up with you soon. I think that's everything on the chat, and we'll see you next week, 7:30 in the morning, Friday, IST.